Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Some great insights there. Really, really valuable. Thanks, guys. We are ready. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We are ready for our next panel. So would panelists please come up for are your automated CRM and ATS systems filling out top military connected candidates? As everyone is making their way to the stage, I'll say, this is something we try to keep everything fresh, keep on top of the cutting edge. And, a lot of the work of recruiting in recent years has kind of been handed off to machines. So we obviously want to make sure that as that's happening, military connected job candidates don't end up getting the short end of the stick as a result. So really looking forward to this panel. And we will... Patrick, please come on up.
You guys ready? We're ready. All right. So good morning, everyone. First and foremost, just a couple of notes. I know I stand between you and lunch. I will pay attention. I don't know what's on the menu, though. Secondary to that, George, Nick, thanks for having me. I want to tell everyone that I was here last year. If there's one thing I learned, I did pack the appropriate shoes. So that was a really cool event last year. Just want to say thanks for teaching me that. The New York City Athletic Club does not allow tennis shoes. So again, my name is Patrick Sense. I have the wonderful opportunity of working for General Dynamics Bath Iron Works in Maine. For those of you that are Navy or Marines, we do build the baddest surface warship in the entire world, the Arleigh Burke Destroyer. And I run the DEI program under the ethics department, but I also manage everything military talent related for the company. In addition to that, I also chair the corporate military subcommittee, so I have overlap with the other 10 business units. And Jared, it's only convenient that you went before me. From the Student Veterans of America Conference in Nashville, I had my first accept this morning. So, yeah. So we have a Brown graduate coming in May to our supply chain department. So super excited, wanted to share that. But without further ado, I'd like to let the panel introduce. We'll start with Oli down here.
Hey everybody, my name is Oli. That's it. I work at a small company down in San Antonio, you might have heard of, USA. I manage our military workforce strategy. And so really what that means is pretty much anything and everything that touches our military population within the company. I have my hands in that pot at some point from an HR perspective. So we analyze very closely our military affiliate population, which of course for us is veterans and military spouses. That's how we define it. And so looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Scott Hamilton. I work at a big company, probably not a lot of you have heard of. It's NextEra Energy. We're the largest renewable power company in the country, and I lead the military recruiting program there. Really focused on staffing throughout our fleet of nuclear, renewable power, and fossil fuel plants throughout the country. I'm an Army veteran myself. I've been in the veteran community, recruiting community for almost 12, 13 years now. So excited to talk a little bit about some of the process today. Thanks.
Hey, everybody. My name is Matt Watkins. I work for a direct healthcare company called Premise Health. We provide healthcare services to many of your organizations in here, USAA to be one of those. But I'm the military program manager there, so obviously anything veteran, military spouse related, I'm the one that touches that. I'm not necessarily a recruiter, but I do work in talent acquisition to kind of help with strategy and retention efforts. Aside from that, I do also run a nonprofit for veterans called Operation Headshot, where we provide opportunities for meeting employment for veterans and military spouses. Served 14 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, spent some time as a recruiter, and then recruited after I exited the Marine Corps off of active duty 2.5 years ago, and I'm currently serving reservists. I got about 4 years, 230 days until I retire. Not that I'm counting. Yeah.
Hey, good morning. My name is Amon Hill. I'm the Director of Career Services at the United States Military Academy in West Point. We serve and touch 5,000 grads each year. We provide one-on-one advising to 550, 600 grads each year. We help place them with amazing careers like NextEra, USAA. Again, our mission is to educate, train, and inspire every single graduate so they can continue to serve the nation just in a different career outside of the military.
Thank you very much. So for those of you that aren't HR professionals, we can say ATS, we can use a lot more acronyms, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on what ATS and CRM is before we move into the questions that I have for the panel. So when people enter the service, they spend months and even years honing their skills and trades to conform to strenuous military standards, effectively molding them into the precise instruments their respective branch demands. They gain invaluable leadership and occupational skills that organizations strive to find by trying to use tools such as the applicant tracking system or a candidate relationship manager. The issue arises when eventually they will reintegrate back into civilian organizations. The search for these types of applicants has a way of being filtered out by the very tools these organizations use to find such invaluable experience. As organizations increasingly rely on applicant tracking systems and candidate relationship management programs to streamline their recruitment processes, a concerning trend has emerged: the unintentional exclusion of military and veterans from these systems. Despite their valuable skills, experience, and leadership qualities, veterans often find themselves overlooked due to the way these technologies filter and prioritize candidates. I know there's more than enough in this room. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but you probably have experienced this before yourself. I have. All right. While ATS and CRM systems offer numerous benefits such as efficiency, organization, scalability, their algorithms and keyword-based screenings can inadvertently disadvantage veterans who may not possess traditional civilian job titles or use industry-specific jargon in their resumes. As a result, many highly qualified veterans face challenges in navigating these systems and accessing employment opportunities that align with their skills and experiences. In this panel, we will explore the reasons behind the exclusion of military veterans from ATS and CRM systems, the implications of this issue for both veterans and employers, and potential strategies to address and rectify this barrier to veteran employment integration. By shedding light on this issue, we aim to promote awareness, foster dialogue, and drive positive change in the recruitment landscape to ensure that veterans receive the recognition and opportunities they rightfully deserve. So with that being said, Oli, when we had our very brief meeting where we didn't discuss anything that we were going to talk about here today, Oli brought up, a very good question to start this off, and that's, what are some best practices that we use at our organization currently in the CRM and ATS? And I'll start with you, Oli.
Yeah, sure. So real quick poll. Who here is in HR? So it looks like about less than maybe 50%. For those of you in HR, who has a pretty deep understanding of your ATS and CRM? Probably close to maybe the same amount of people, right? So I kind of compare it to a recruiter, right? If you ask, 10 different recruiters, you get 15 different answers. So to me, you got to understand the pull through. So from a technology standpoint with ATSs, right? That's the data capture, is capturing the data on the front end, and there's an integration that occurs with the CRM on the back end, but they're all using the same type of data. And so from a best practice standpoint, which I think we'll get into shortly, I think one of the things that we try to do is get ahead of the ATS. The ATS is a consumer of it, right? We got to understand the environment prior to that. What's the population of the people that are even applying, which are pulling them into the ATS and what have you. I'm not nearly the data nerd that Jared is by any means, trust me. But a stat that you might have heard is about 50% or so of veterans that are entering into the workforce leave their first employee company after the first year. And then within the second year, that increases to about 60 to 80%, right? So veterans don't exactly know what they want to do when they get out. That's not a common, that's a kind of a pretty unfortunate statistic. And so when they're looking at companies, they don't know what they don't know, right? So when they're entering into these applications, back to the self-identification, the very first data point is in the application for us. A lot of companies don't ask. They don't ask in the application on whether you're a veteran or a military spouse. But for our standpoint, that's the very first data point because it pulls through. And that pull through, we can now see them once they enter into the ATS, and we can, our recruiters are trained to understand where that's at. So from just to make a full circle, I think for us, the very first thing is to understand the environment, understand where the applicants are even coming from before they ever enter the ATS, because that's our attraction tactics and strategies.
Thanks, Oli. Care to expand, Matt?
Yeah, so kind of like Oli said, it's that self-identification up front. So we actually we transitioned CRMs and ATSs about 2 days ago. So the new system that we have hopefully is a lot better than the one we had. But it wasn't doing that. It wasn't giving them the opportunity to self-identify up front. They were having to self-identify after they got selected to become an employee. So that's a huge piece that really helps me and the rest of the HR team and the recruiters to help us pinpoint those applicants, to help them through the process and really highlight them to hiring managers and such.
Okay. Scott, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
I'll just reiterate the capture piece, right? Like the way we do it, I've got a small team that focuses exclusively on recruiting veterans, and we're able to tag and identify those veterans as they come into the system. And then we've got the experience to know which business unit they would be the most aligned to. Where we're still working on our gap is where veterans apply organically to our job postings or advertisements out there, and they don't come through the military team funnel, and a regular recruiter, we'll call them, overlooks their resume, or they don't get through their keyword screen because they don't recognize what they're looking at. So I think that dives into a deeper need across organizations to be able to educate, and we've heard the word advocate and champions and pathways, right? All these things. It's difficult when organizations just say, well, I want to hire veterans, but I don't know where. Or, I want to hire to this role, but I don't know which veteran fits it. So I think backing it up a little bit in terms of just like how do they not slip through the cracks is identifying what roles are you targeting and which veterans fit ideally into those roles, and then being tight in terms of when you identify those veterans, being able to capture them, identify them, tag them, nurture that pipeline throughout the hiring process.
Thank you. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I should have 3 things to add.
All right.
Sorry. I can talk the next 10 minutes. No, but we have, I think all veterans, extremely talented, experienced, amazing leaders. Their biggest frustration through the application process is they can't make it past the ATS process. So there's a few things that we do. One is we work with an AI-based company called Hiration. It's an amazing program where it takes their existing resume, and a lot of times, and you can match it up to a job description, and it shows the keywords that they're missing from the resume. A lot of our veterans find out like, hey, I did the exact same thing. A lot of times they're able to massage those words into the resume, and now they're actually cracking through the application tracking system. So that's number one. A second thing is all of our veterans, they invest so much time in their soldiers and their families. They don't invest a lot of time in themselves. So again, we encourage our grads, like, hey, if you're looking to transition into this in corporate America, partner with programs like American Corporate Partners. It allows them to partner with amazing mentors out there in corporate America who can help guide them, show them how to write a correct resume and how to bypass some of those barriers. And then the last part I would say is if you're not seeing a lot of veterans come through your application tracking system, I would encourage you to attend one of those virtual or in-person career events. I know Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Merchant Marines. We'll say mostly Army though, I'm a little biased. We have 4 in-person events each year called Service Academy Career Conferences. We typically have between 100 and 120 companies that show up. It's a great opportunity to get some face time with some amazing leaders who, on paper, based off their resume, might not meet all the criteria, but once you get some face time with them, you can see there's a lot of parallels between the military experience, and they'll meet those needs at your organization.
All right, thank you. So I want to go back to something that Matt had talked. We just started using a CRM, and we've seen progression through CRM over the past years. I mean, just for context, 21 years ago, if you had a Netflix account, you went to your mailbox and you got at most 2 DVDs out of it, right? Now you're watching it on your phone, you're watching it in hotel rooms, it doesn't matter. So CRM has obviously progressed probably faster than Netflix has, just because of the use of AI models and things of that nature. So compared to 5 years ago, if you had a CRM, I mean, who in here that works in the HR business or talent acquisition had a CRM 5 years ago? That's way less than half earlier, right? So how has the CRM progressed over the past 5 years, and where would you see it maybe going in the next 5? I'll start with you. Come on.
Great question. So we work with a lot of recruiters, and I'll say over the last year or 2 years, the number of recruiters continue to dwindle, just because I think with the advancements of AI, they can do a lot of things a lot faster. Along those same lines, I think a lot of great veterans are slipping through the cracks. So where I see instead of 5 years, 10 years down the road, as AI continues to improve, I think there's going to be a bigger decrease in the number of recruiters that are out there for the FaceTime. It's going to be more automated.
Matt?
Yeah, just to kind of add on that AI piece, one of the struggles that we talked about that veterans and military spouses even have when it comes to applying for positions is translating their resumes. Proving those gaps in the resumes for whatever reason. I think with AI, it's going to help the transitioning service member help highlight their resume and highlight their skill sets for whatever position that they're going for.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these things we talk about like build on themselves, right? And I forgot your name, John. Brett mentioned, he's not in HR, but when his HR team goes to these hiring events, they bring veterans or folks with them that can speak the language, right? So I think, we're all sitting here in this AI world and like robots are going to take over the world soon. So we're all doomed. But, right now, like we still control the robots to a certain extent, right? Before they're like off the rails. And I think if we look at CRMs and AI and ATS, where it's going, like we still have the ability for now to the data that we put in and that we allow these things to do, right? So as opposed to bringing a hiring manager who's a veteran to an event with you that can speak military to the veterans, like it's our responsibility to know how to program, how to utilize those tools to optimize the veteran community, whether that's keywords, job titles, education, whatever we look for when we're on the road recruiting these veterans. We need to optimize these tools and all that they're going to bring, but using them smartly with, folks that can speak the language. And if you don't, you're in HR, you don't have military experience, like lean on those advocates, those champions within your organization to make sure it's giving you the results that you want.
Appreciate it. So, I mean, like we've talked about the AI technology thing. Who's an engineer in here? Okay, we have a couple. Y'all are scary. I just want you to know that. So I went to a national engineering conference a couple weeks ago. When we got on this topic, my director of life cycle engineering was traveling with me, and he's got, I don't know, probably 5 degrees, and one of them cybersecurity and information technology, whatever it is, I don't know. But he gets on the topic talking about how AI can help with recruiting, and I had to get away because it's my job. I don't want to hear about robots doing it. But anyway, yeah. So Oli, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to add one thing. Who enjoys getting spammed? Right? No hands. That's weird. So one thing about the CRM, right, is it has the ability to reach a large population of people within the push of a button. And so to echo, I think, a couple of the points is how do you keep the human touch with the candidates that you're trying to nurture and keep warm so that you can attract them to the company without it coming across as they got another automated email, right? And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges. One other challenge too, just a fair warning, we lost a significant amount of data when we went from one CRM to another. So just be cautious about that. There's not always the integration between one CRM to another. We lost a lot. So just wanted to throw a couple of those points out there as well.
So here's another good, like based on everything that we just talked about, what are critical changes that organizations and industry leaders need to make to address future issues with CRM and ATS? I'll start with Scott.
Thanks. I mean, I think that the big hot button out there right now within our space and these tools and technologies is just the bias, right? And trying to get that right. And making sure that it's aligned with, the objectives within the HR departments and their hiring goals. So, these things aren't perfect. I've seen a variety of different iterations, and you can't always, right? Like whether we're talking about like, self-driving cars or something that, there's so many millions of data points and things that we can read as humans that like these machines and computers just like aren't there yet. So I think it's important to have someone in the driver's seat on these things for a while until they're really optimized to make sure we're getting the results that we want and the data that they're producing. So I think from the right end in terms of the inputs on the front end of what we want, and then making sure on the back end, it's producing the results, even if we set it up properly, is it delivering? So I think those are the biggest challenges, what we're coming to see.
Come on, do you have anything you could add?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. All right. Matt?
I mean, I think as these systems change and evolve, we have to be willing to change and evolve with them. We can't push back on some of these things that are coming up. Obviously, there's the scare of AI and robots running the world, right? And taking over our jobs. But at the same time, if we can figure out how to best utilize AI and this evolving technology, what more jobs could we add to the pipeline?
Oli?
Yeah, I'll hit maybe a different perspective. Again, ATS is just nothing more than it's an entry point. It's a technology tool that's put in place to really collect the applicants that are coming into the company, looking at the company. This is where I think that, 10 questions, 15 answers comes in. I guarantee you, if you poll this room with all the different companies, there's probably a couple that have the same ATS or the same CRM, right? Everybody's kind of looked at their own unique needs within their businesses and determined which one they're going to bring on, whether it's cost or what have you. So it's not that there's a standout ATS that probably the majority of the population is going down. From our perspective, we were so high volume in our applicants. I mean, USA gets close to 500,000 applications a year, right? And when you divide that by how many we employ per year, significant difference between those. So we were trying to figure out how to reduce the amount of applicants, where it's quality versus quantity. And you can't really do that with an ATS. The ATS is just going to collect them, right? They're going to apply and it pulls them into your system. So we end up going outside. I'll put a selfless plug. I'm not promoting it by any means, but I know there's other companies here that use them. But we use Opline. And for us, it was a replacement for our military translator, right? And so one of the things that we've done is we implemented, and they have the machine learning AI technology that helps filter down the applicant pool. And so we're able to get the right people to the right jobs, which is the biggest challenge. And ATS doesn't do that. I can apply to 30 jobs today if I wanted to. It doesn't tell me whether or not I'm the best person for those jobs. My qualifications will kind of make its way through. But again, it's how do you put the human touch to it and what have you. And so we've gone to a couple different channels, but that's one of the things we've done is we actually went outside.
Scott?
Yeah, I think, the premise of this is how are these systems like, hurting the veteran population? I think it's really an opportunity to make things a lot better, right? Because I think when you look internally within recruiting and talent acquisition, you constantly have recruiters coming and going, working with different business units, hiring managers coming and going, in the task of like making sure, you've got that advocate, or the type of candidate that can fit specific roles, or that recruiter can look for. You might finally get somebody dialed in after 6-12 months, and then they leave or go take another role, right? And I think with some of these tools that are coming online, we've got the opportunity to set foundations that can stay in place and overcome the challenges of constantly fluctuating, folks in TA and hiring managers, and always retraining and re-emphasizing the importance of hiring veterans. So, we're approaching this as like a potential negative, but this could be really positive for increasing our veteran hiring moving forward.
Matt?
Yeah, just to kind of, like you said, it's highlighting those veterans, those military spouses. I think, just piggybacking off of what Scott said, like that's exactly what the positive could come out of this. And the other positive is helping them translate their skills from their resume. Like I've hit on it a couple of times, but that is one of the biggest challenges that I see at Premise when I reach out to these veteran applicants. Is they're like, I don't understand why I didn't get this job. I've been doing this work for so long, for 20, 30 years. I'm getting ready to retire. And it's not that they don't have the experience. It's not that they don't have the skill sets. It's they don't know how to translate it and actually put it on paper. So the hiring managers don't necessarily see it. So these systems that we're talking about, being able to highlight those skill sets and translate it for them, whereas it could, using the word lazy kind of hurts people's feelings sometimes, but it can make the transitioning service member lazy because they don't have to worry about that. But at the same time, it helps them getting a position. It helps them understand what their skill sets, how they translate, how their skill sets and experiences translate. So, yeah.
So I'd like to hear about the perspective from West Point and the work that you do with those individuals up there and talking this translation stuff that we've been discussing.
Absolutely. So this data shows that 80% of all jobs last year were found through the power of internal referrals or networking. The other 15-20% typically comes from the application tracking system. So we have a good combination of the AI aspect and the ATS, but the majority of what we focus on is the people aspect. So we all know that pretty much less than 1% of Americans have served in the military in some capacity. So while as small as it is, it's actually a pretty large still community. So we encourage all of our veterans to reach out to other veterans who are actually in the spaces that they're interested in and get that guidance, get that feedback, that mentorship needed to make that transition from the military or from a civilian job to a civilian job. And we do this networking again through like this great platforms like LinkedIn and some other ones out there just to connect with other graduates or other veterans that are out there in that space. The other 15, 20% we talked about, I mentioned before, is this cracking that application tracking system. So again, we teach our grads on, or veterans in general, those keywords to use. We use those AI-based technology because again, a lot of in the veteran space, in my 5 years in the military, I think I had 4 different jobs, and I loved all four different jobs, right? So when we transitioned out of the military, like, what do you want to do? And like most veterans, like, I want to do this, 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 and this. So in order to create 4 or 5 different resumes for 4 or 5 different industries, now we're saving a lot of time, a lot of energy for our grads to create those 4 or 5 different resumes in a matter of an hour, so they can cascade and apply for those different passions.
Appreciate it. So I want to add a little bit of time or I want to keep a little bit of the time for questions that you may have about ATS or CRM, because again, 50% of the room raised their hand saying they knew about it. But some talking points to take home with you. Again, I didn't want to fly and just talk about ATS and CRM. I wanted to put some stuff on paper so you had good notes to take home. But as we wrap up our discussion today, I want to underscore the critical role that CRM and ATS play in our efforts to support and hire veterans. These systems are not mere tools. They are bridges connecting our commitment to veterans with tangible actions. Firstly, let's talk about candidate relationship management. Imagine it as the warm handshake extended to every veteran who expresses an interest in joining our workforce. CRM ensures that no connection goes unnoticed, no inquiry remains unanswered. It's the personal touch that says we value you, your service, and your potential. Secondly, we have the applicants tracking system. Think of the ATS as the meticulous librarian organizing our recruitment library. It categorizes resumes, tracks application, and ensures that every veteran's qualifications are considered. ATS doesn't discriminate. It sifts through data objectively, allowing us to focus on what truly matters, finding the right fit for our team. But why are these systems crucial specifically for veterans? Number 1, efficiency. Veterans bring unique skills and experiences. CRM and ATS streamline the hiring process, allowing us to efficiently match their talents with our organizational needs. Time served here means more time for mentorship, training, and integration. Consistency, number 2. Veterans deserve consistent communication. CRM ensures that whether they apply online, attend a job fair, or network at a conference, their journey remains seamless. Consistency builds trust, and trust is the foundation of lasting relationships. Inclusivity, number 3. ATS eliminates bias. It doesn't care about age, gender, or background. It cares about qualifications. Veterans often transitioning from military to civilian life benefit from this impartial approach. Their skills shine through, unencumbered by stereotypes. Retention, number 4 and the final one. Hiring veterans is not about recruitment, it's about retention. CRM helps us stay connected even after they've joined our ranks. It reminds us to celebrate and provide ongoing support. In conclusion, CRM and ATS are our allies in the mission to honor veterans. They amplify our gratitude into action, ensuring that every veteran feels seen, valued, and empowered within our organization. So let's embrace these tools, not as cold software, but as instruments of goodwill. A salute to those who've served. Thank you, but I'd like to open the floor for any questions you may have for this panel. None for me, though.
I was going to say, we did a great job.
We have some over here. Is there a mic running around anywhere yet? I mean, if you, go ahead.
I don't need a mic. I'll use mine. Great, thank you so much for that information. I do have a question. I really just want to know what your input is, because you touched on briefly about AI. So traditionally, veterans and military spouses, the unemployment rate for transitioning veterans to complete that first year within a company is traditionally, the fail rate's pretty high. It fluctuates anywhere between 20 and 30% that the veteran does not complete that first year in that first job once they get out. Military spouse unemployment rate in the high 20s, right? So do you think that the introduction of AI, and you mentioned about a drop off in recruiters or not the need of recruiters. Do you think the inception of more AI combined with CRM and ATS is either going to hurt or help those challenging problems?
Anyone want to jump on that?
And so I'll tell you that it was a game changer for us by implementing it. We actually integrated it. So the transition is the responsibility of the veteran, but integration is the responsibility of the companies, right? So for us, we looked at that from the perspective of what is the biggest challenge? Skills translation, skills equivalency. That's the biggest challenge for veterans coming out. They have this robust amount of, and I say veterans, but also military specialists. They have a robust amount of experience in education, but they just don't know how to tell their story, right? So the tool that we implemented is one that really takes it. It's what we look. It's almost like a digital resume for them that takes every skill that they do and matches it and aligns it to the jobs they qualify for at our company. So it's different where right now you go to any career site, I can go to any of them and not have the slightest clue what that job is. I don't know what it means. I don't know what the wording says because of how they title it. You know, we have process engineers at our company. People think that's you need an engineering degree. No, we just call them process engineers, right? But I mean, it's just naming conventions don't make sense to a lot of veterans because we don't have those in the military. So the tool takes that out of it. The tool that we have pretty much is asks like about 30 to 40 questions about your experience that makes sense. It's all MOS based. It's not an MOS skills translator, which I know we all have concerns with those. That's not what this is. It's a job alignment tool. So they put in all their information into the tool, and then it has an algorithm that calculates it, scrapes our job board, and says, you qualify for these 15 jobs. Don't worry about the other 350 on the job board because you qualify for these. That took it out of it, and it took the volume of our applicants lower, but now we have qualified people applying for the right jobs in the right skill sets, you know, in the right job hierarchies. So for us, it was different, but it's not part of our ATS and it's not part of our CRM. It was a third-party tool that we integrated to help facilitate that on the back end.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you hear me this time? So Lou again from Clean Harbors. So the question is, the obvious one I think is, actually it's probably for Mr. Miller over there in the corner, is why do service members transitioning out don't have a basic, functional, civilianized resume that they can go into an ATS with? A lot of the responsibility does fall to employers, but Oli talks about his solution, which I've taken a strong look at. It's not cheap. That's an investment. And then if we talk about the less than 1% that serve, 99% of the people that are going to look at their resume have no sense of what it means or what it looks like. So now, even if you've gotten that candidate to the hiring manager, they still may not understand what a HAZWOPER is or understand how these skills and traits identified relate to the type of work that they're looking to fill, right? You can get them to as close to that trough of water, but it goes back to every single candidate I talk to has a different type of a resume. You know, we have master gunnery sergeants calling themselves vice presidents or directors because they just don't know. So is it an opportunity inside of the TAP curriculum to say, from an employer point of view, the lens should be less than 1% serve. You need to get your understanding and head wrapped around how they operate and how they do that, because I would also argue that it's not all AI generated. The way in which recruiters typically work, right? You get your 5-7 candidates that you move forward with. That job posting's still going to be out there for another 2 weeks collecting resumes. So yeah, that button gets pushed on those 500,000 candidates you get. They get flushed out, and everyone says it's AI. Oh, I got this. No, you didn't get this stopped in the process because of AI. The recruiter had their candidate pool, the slate they moved forward with, and then you just got flushed out like the rest of them. But anyways, I guess I'm more making an opinion as opposed to a question, but it kind of comes back to is like in the TAP program, there should be an opportunity for them to understand how do these AI tools are used. You know, how can they start to use LinkedIn to kind of get there, to build a network so they can actually reach out to those veterans that are in companies like ours to say, hey, can you get me
some insight into how to apply to your position to be successful. It happened to me just the other day with a CBRNE officer out of Carson, right? He didn't know how to start his job search. He found me and gave him the opportunity. And to Oli's point, he skipped over all the CRMs and ATSs, and I got him straight to the hiring leaders. So how do we kind of, I guess, build it back into the beginning point where it should be inside TAP, so that we all, as TA professionals, have something to work with?
Yes, sir.
Thoughts?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my thoughts as a veteran and a guy that's been in veteran recruiting for 15 years, I hate when veterans try to civilianize their resumes, because then nobody knows what they did. Because then I read their resume, I'm like, you were CEO, you were what? No, you was a platoon leader, you're a divo. Like, so we all speak veteran, and they try to civilianize it, and then the civilian don't know what they're talking about. We don't know what they're talking about. So, I don't have a solution. I don't like saying these things when I don't have a solution, but I go back to how we've had success and how I've seen the most success within other corporations. We've heard the buzzword several times. I've used them: advocates, champions. There's a good chance that most organizations are going to have some kind of veteran presence in their company, right? Like, we have to lean on those people to build those internal systems to be able to identify what candidates you're targeting and how to identify them, right? And what you're looking for. And I think that's the solution. We can put it on TAPS and say they should revitalize their resume writing service or whatever the case may be. I think there's no silver bullet in this, right? Collectively, there's a lot we can work on. But from my experience in doing this a long time, like those internal champions, those programs, those pathways, those bridgeways into the organizations are where we're going to have the most success. And please don't civilianize your military resume, because it's going to hurt you at Next Era Energy. Thank you.
That's where I learned what a human capital manager was.
I'll jump in real quick. I'll give a couple practical things that we've done as well. So for us, we've kind of defined our recruiter cadre as every recruiter is a military recruiter, right? Whether 35% or so of our recruiters have served or a military spouse. The other 60 or so have not, right? 65. So for us, we've big training that happens within our recruiter cadre, so that they understand whenever you see, because a lot of veterans and spouses apply for USAA. There ain't no question about that, right? We're blessed in that fact that we're a natural attraction farm. So we do a really good job of training our recruiters to understand what they're going to see when they get those resumes. That's number one. Second one is we have about 7,500 or so veterans and military spouses in our VetNet ERG. To them, that's an extension of our brand. That's an extension of advocacy. That's an extension of mentorship and coaching. So we really leverage them to ensure that they are out there as well. Another thing we've done, just from an ATS perspective, we are able to prioritize every veteran and spouse that apply to our jobs, because we ask them in the application. So because we ask them, we can identify them if they self-identified, and then we can prioritize them whenever they look at their talent pool. So if we get 100 applicants and 15 of them are vets and spouses, they click a button and now they can see all 10 of them, 15 of them at the top, and they screen them first as one of our practices. The last thing is just employee referral programs. I'm sure a lot of companies have those, but we really push referrals to them, and that's the internal advocacy, because now you have an employee putting their name on the line for a candidate that's applied. And so just a couple of practical.
Thanks, Oli. I want to give you two an option to add anything else you'd like to add, but we're rolling up against time, and I told you I would not interfere with lunch.
Yeah, real quick, just to tie into the TAP and the translation resumes and even attracting veterans and military spouses into the company to apply. One thing that I've learned throughout my transition 2 years ago off of active duty is that spray and praying my resume was not working, right? That's the best way to put it in this crowd, to where everybody understands. What really helped me was the networking piece, that grassroots, actually talking to people. So instead of maybe teaching them on top of teaching them how to translate their titles, maybe teaching them how to network and actually talk to people. When I went through Marine Corps recruiting school back in 2014, that was one of the things that they taught us. Hey, try to smile, talk to people, use first names. Don't stop being a robot. The Army recruiters understand. It is. And I learned that, I was a totally introverted person, did not want to talk to people, but I chose recruiting for a lot of different reasons. And I don't understand why I chose recruiting, but I did. But I made it. But that networking piece, that actually learning how to talk to folks, is crucial for transitioning service members. And it's crucial also for military spouses. So like that's my challenge to every organization that has a military hiring initiative is get out there and talk to them. If you see a good resume or something come through or someone on LinkedIn, connect with them, pick up the phone, call them. That we can actually call people on our phones. I know we've moved away from that and moved into text messages and emails, but you can actually pick up the phone and call them and talk to them and mentor them through their transition process and help them get into a good, meaningful job that's maybe they'll stay in for more than 3 months like I did in my first one and 11 months in my second one. You know what I mean?
So last but not least, I think, again, networking is key. I think education is very, very important as well. You don't know what you don't know. And I think a lot of transitioning service members, they just don't know, right? So I know at West Point, every Wednesday we have virtual webinar Wednesdays. We have a host of employers, panels like this, who just talk about their industry, best practices, different opportunities that are out there. If you guys are interested, it's 100% free, and we would love to have you guys come on board and just talk to our grads and their spouses.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.